believing oneself to be perfect is often the sign of a delusional mind.
When are we going to stop tearing apart our bedrooms?
When we're out of the building, Hiroaki.
But where are we going to sleep?
And what? What if the bed doesn't even go anywhere?
It has to go somewhere.
What if it doesn't go anywhere useful?
Going on.
They're fighting.
I just think we're getting far too focused on one ridiculous plan when we should be considering other options.
Then propose some other options.
Harder. Your grip isn't tight enough.
I hope they enjoyed the show.
I have some thoughts. Tetro Danganronpa Pink is an audio drama, sort of, with ARG elements of storytelling, but mainly an audio drama. Before I touched this piece of work, it was always bizarre to me how anytime I got a blip of info about this fangen's writing, it was a mental flashbang, something akin to the likes of deportation threats or torture episodes. I kept asking myself, what do people see in this? And after some time, I bit the bullet and watched Tetro Pink. This was the biggest mistake I ever made. I can probably think of some good scenes that this fangen has had, but honest to God, for every one good/middling scene, I can think of more scenes that exceed the fingers on both of my hands that were offensive to my soul. This entire process of watching this blind was almost like flaying your mind, and I always left mentally drained and bored. Needless to say, any good faith I have with Tetro Pink has been completely eroded, and what's left of me is an empty well that has no discernible bottom. For obvious reasons, I have to put in a disclaimer here to not direct hate towards the staff or creator of Tetro Pink. As much as I hate the ever-loving fuck out of this writing in the hands that typed it, it's always important to not tap the glass, and I'll try to remain as constructive as possible. On top of that, I won't be discussing in depth the drama surrounding this fandom's attitude towards naysayers, the creator's unhealthy dynamic with their fanbase, and the AI art allegations. On the last part, however, in my opinion, I think the allegations hold water, and the attempts to refute it with speed paints are laughable to me when they don't really address the inconsistencies in the sprites used. I find myself here making this video not just because it's bad. Well, it is. But also because the subject matter this fangen tries to tackle are handled so egregiously that I feel like me and you need to have a closer examination on how the hell we got here. Because I genuinely don't understand the intoxicatingly positive fanbase this game has, and the vow of silence it has to the point of having internet confessional booths. How is this mystery writing, the character dynamics, the character developments, the motivations, everything, this awful? And why does this retain an audience despite that? Where there will be a spoiler warning in this moment, and I recommend you check it out yourself, I cannot in good conscience tell you to watch this. If I were to recommend you to subject yourself to the pacing and the other failures I'll be discussing shortly, I'd probably be convicted for assisted suicide. This is not an experience where it was so bad it was good, this was bad. And you'll never know how good you have it until you dip your toes in. I'll leave the link below, of course, but please, seriously think about whether you want to subject yourself to this. One final thing I need to make clear, and it's that I won't be going through staff side or any of the external contextualization from any Q&As and such during my analysis. If those are required reading instead of supplementary to make this more tolerable, I think you've poorly communicated your story. I want to quickly thank and apologize to my friends for sitting through this with me at playback speeds that did not alleviate the pain whatsoever, and to keep me sober during the final stretch. Without further ado, let's begin. If you recall from the prologue test section in the previous video where I discussed Danganronpa Labs, Danganronpas have a thorn on their side when it comes to the general flow for how they introduce characters and the rules for what's to come. You generally have your protagonist waking up at an unknown location, meet other characters in the same predicament, and go up to them one by one. Bonus points if you have a sidekick with you. After that, all characters are gathered to a single location and have the rules and premise told to them. One tries to resist, and authority is established to make sure nobody persists. It's tried and true, and for that reason, the audience will go through the motions without really paying attention. Tetro Pink, however, tries something different that I'll give props for. There is no protagonist, and you don't have the characters talk to each other per se. Instead, it has two phases of introductions most likely meant for viewers who were intently watching during the airing. The first phase, a sneak peek of who they are and their mannerisms, and the second phase, a one-on-one interview with a killing game facilitator where they state their name, occupation, and whatnot. For the first phase, I would say it's the more effective way to communicate the characters that they have. A real show don't tell. Well, they are telling, but I digress. The only thing I would have to question is why they have a trash bin with a conspicuous amount of tissues. The second phase, though, is where things fall flat. Of course, the nature of the first phase isn't exactly natural as you're peering into their day-to-day lives, but it's still very good for what it is. The interview phase is the tell part of the show don't tell. Again, an interesting idea. Field basic questions that are asked to every student like their occupation, with one extra question personalized to them. The only thing is that they are repetitive, and the novelty wears off fast. Very, very fast. You have a moment or two like a cutoff due to physical resistance or verbal resistance, but all in all, it's quite forgettable in comparison to the first phase. We have to make this quick though, so let's rapid fire through the characters and their talents. Here's hoping we don't get sidetracked. First, we have a Sona, who calls herself an idol, but that's the cool way of saying a streamer. Second, we have Keizu Harada, a zoologist with a tiger cup that I hope has proper airflow. Third, we have Chiba Airi, a child star.
May run out of fingers to count on here.
10, and this many fingers.
17.
I'm 17.
Wait, what? Okay, I promise this will be quick. But we have to talk about the child, but not child in the room. Chiba Airi is 17, but for whatever reason, she behaves like a child, is treated like a child, and is portrayed as a child. So why is she 17? You'll come to ask yourself this later on for characters who have no right to be the same age as each other. And oftentimes, the characters will keep reminding you that they are in fact minors.
My name is Azalea Evergreen. I was a soldier in the Civil War, and I killed 1,000 guys, and now I have a full-time job at a post office or something. How old am I?
I don't know, 22?
14 years
How
old.
the fuck does she have a job?
My name is Sosuke Bosuke. I was a former piano prodigy, but after years of competition, I left the stage due to psychological trauma. Life is but a series of petals fluttering onto a pond, rippling into starlight, a cosmic dance of infinite possibilities.
16?
I'm 8.
Children don't talk like this.
I'm just a little baby girl.
0?
I'm 1,000.
Nope.
Now, I'll get this out of the way. I have no problem with the concept of minors talking sexually or talking dirty. I've suffered scenes from Higurashi and I can brush that aside. With Tetro Pink, however, it's a weird bind the creator has where she wants to do these moments and draw art of certain characterships, which is fine, but with the previous experience that certain characters have, and the way the story will treat Chiba later on, it makes you wonder why this arbitrary age limit was set in the first place. You also have to wonder why she drew her character this way. Anyways, next up is Kazutoshi Kamimura, a crime scene cleaner. After that, we have Mai Hayashi, a bounty hunter, 17 by the way. Masanari Wada, a voice impersonator, specifically that, who's a certified NEET. We're also introduced to Hitomi Sasaki, the class president. Takeshi Ojima, a children's illustrator. Hanano Okazaki, a mask artisan and a rapist because fuck you, this isn't told anywhere in the main story. Ran Hama, an occultist LARPer. Manami Suno, a superhero. Nakamigawa Hiroaki, a fashion designer. Riku Tamba, a gymnast. Ken Hasegawa, a quiz show contestant. Nishino Watari, a fire dancer. And finally, Shigeki Yanagi, a figure skater. See what I mean by this falling flat? There isn't more to talk about here in the prologue, so we'll just move right on to chapter 1. Our cast wakes up, and the varied reactions are about as you'd expect. There's just one thing you'd probably ask yourself about now.
This is scary.
Is that a little kid?
Found it.
What is this voice direction? In the early episodes of Tetro Pink, I'm not sure whether this is an issue of voice direction or video editing. Lord knows I've had hell scrubbing, but in certain points, Characters will start their lines as quickly as another ends it, or after a pregnant pause.
How do we get out of here?
You would know if you would take a moment to listen. I was about to explain that.
The former is resolved after a while, but the latter never really goes away. This fact isn't really helped by the lack of audio stimuli like music. For all of Tetro Pink, you are stuck with ambience, sound effects, and voice acting. The combination of the ever-present echo on all characters and the inconsistent pacing of lines delivered all makes this for a very awkward listen? For the sake of brevity, let's just call it watch. You still have visual elements like captions and sprites for characters, but for some reason, Tetro will put in timestamps and locations in the description and leave the floor planning to a wiki that I had to look myself up that I assume is the official page for the series. It's a weird thing, whatever this medium is supposed to be. Staying to the topic at hand, the voice direction is really hit or miss. You can have some scenes like Laps, which have great voice acting,
All of this, I need to go home.
or you have scenes that sound like they were phoned in,
First person who tries throwing a weapon around is gonna be sorry that they tried. Got that?
or out of an early 2000s horror game.
And about these doors, they don't seem to have any sort of lock on them. That hardly seems safe or appropriate for this type of facility.
Stop it! Don't open that door!
Let me make it clear here that I'm not trashing the voice actors here, but the lack of experience or assistance from the voice director really doesn't help them. One of these examples is the rabbit, Monomoko. You'd think with the cadence this rabbit has, it's going for a robot mascot. But there's something really off about the cadence of the lines delivered that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It's like if you had a turret from the Portal series, but forgot to add a voice filter.
I think you'll find during your stay that safety isn't a very prominent priority for us.
Prometheus was punished by the gods for giving the gift of knowledge to man.
Maybe this is just a me thing. Anyways, the premise gets explained for everyone present, and Hayashi runs off to find an entrance. There are certain ideas that I find interesting, such as the decision to make the victory condition of passing 5 trials, and the lack of water during nighttime, but the latter is used to prevent evidence from being cleaned up, which, in my opinion, is a bit of a clunky way to go about it. A smoother way to go about it probably would have been making a rule something along the lines of, you can't dispose or erase evidence outside of authorized channels like the incinerator, or make things like the laundry room have a log history. Really, I'm just making excuses to make sure I could have a night shower. We move on to the bedroom tour, where, for some reason, Monomoko does these tours one by one instead of all at once. You'll come to find out that later on, this entire killing game was designed by clowns and supervised by monkeys.
Being all alone all the time would make you a very easy target in a killing.
I didn't say all the time.
Seriously, why does it care?
Do we get a map?
I can provide maps, if you'd all like that.
It might help. Yeah.
They won't ever show these maps in these videos, by the way.
Moving on, we have the kitchen, dining hall, incinerator, pool, storage room, the auditorium where we get introduced to the vent, medbay, locker rooms, interview room, and finally, the laundry room. There isn't much to point out in these scenes, but I'd like to highlight the harassment episode, where Kamimura basically gets gaslit by the rabbit into believing that any rule breaker would get executed.
In the worst case scenario, you're wrong, and you're killed for your doubts. It's a tough choice to make.
I'm serious. Nobody tries to break these rules until Chapter 3. You could argue that authority is established in the prologue with the staff, but I vehemently disagree, as subduing and harming are completely different. On top of that, they don't remember a single thing from those interviews.
What do you remember?
What do I remember? If you mean from before I got here, then I remember being at home, I guess. I think that's actually the last thing I remember.
Anyways, after all the areas are explored, everyone congregates to the auditorium where we begin the vent arc. The group finds a vent hideout that's inaccessible without external tools like a ladder or a rope. A discussion begins around ways to access the vent, and at some point, Hayashi contests Sasaki's leader role in a way that can only describe as a non-argument.
You realize we're supposed to be killing each other, right? Why should we trust that you don't have some kind of ulterior motive?
That's your decision to make.
In an ideal world, everyone in the room would mock her. This won't be the end of these forced conflicts, by the way. The group moves to the dining hall to continue their discussion, and when they oh my god! Okay, I'm not kidding. For the first 9 minutes, this is a recap of what the previous episodes were. I get that this is supposed to be everyone sharing their information, but in a sane story, this wouldn't be this long, or would be a black screen with text in games like Genshin Impact. It's very inefficient storytelling. Once we get to the vent topic though, the group quickly agrees to stacking furniture and looking for ladders and such. I'm not sure why Hama and Hayashi are now feeling it, but fine. The group doesn't get to finish because of nighttime rules though, and so they leave it for tomorrow. In the dining hall, we see Kamimura and Hasegawa have a conversation in what I can only describe as gay slop. Okay, this is your mileage may vary type of deal. I know people who also watched Tetro with negative reception found this to be one of the few highlights. And credit where credit's due, this dynamic in my opinion does a good job of showing codependency. It's a very messy character dynamic, and I understand why people like it. I just think that one, these ship scenes are given way too much screen time in comparison to the other scenes. Seriously, I can think of more of these scenes than any plot relevant scenes. 2, in my opinion, these scenes lay it on so thick that it almost feels like it's forced onto you. It's almost like if you had a random encounter where you're forced to sit through a fanfiction scene.
Takeshi, where's the... What's with the crowd?
Put some clothes on.
Do you seriously wrap your towel around your chest?
A pair of pants.
What are you going with? The black shirt and the purple coat?
Yeah.
Then just do the black sweatpants with the white stripe.
You think?
Oh my god, you're just as bad as him.
Like, how is this official? And 3, some characters aren't really anything outside of their ships. Hasegawa is the biggest offender in this part. Granted, I am more of a fan of the ships that have characters not explicitly into each other, like Harry and Kim from Disco Elysium.
I'm your man.
The lieutenant is about to say something, but gets cut off.
The next morning, some of the cast meet in the dining hall to elaborate further on the way to get up to the vent. Keep this knowledge tight. Hiroaki suggests the idea of using the ladder to get a greater height to throw a rope made of bed sheets. The group does begin to work on setting up in the auditorium though, and candidates for the rope climbers are fielded, with varying answers. The climber is decided to be Tamba, and although Chiba is fielded as a possible option, it's rejected by Hama, because he doesn't consent.
Chiba can't get up there. It's too hard of a climb.
But I love climbing. I bet I could do it.
It's too high.
Going into the process of setting up, Hiroaki raises concerns for this plan in a really bad way. It would be reasonable if Hiroaki started being valid with his points, but they edge on contrarianism, and as a result, this entire scene comes off as happening for the sake of it.
We'll be out by tonight.
And what if it doesn't go well? You're ignoring reality in favor of blind optimism.
If it doesn't go well, you can pick your mattress back up and put it back in your room. Is that such a challenge for you?
Just to remind you, he's arguing like this because he has to take a mattress out of a room that's designated for him in a death game. What are we doing here? In the hideaway, Ojima lets Shigeki open up about his concerns, which is kind of funny. Why is Shigeki so hesitant to voice his concerns when Hiroaki was talking nonsense? Tama gets around to climbing the rope and unscrews the vent. If you were paying attention to the logistics, once the vent cover is unscrewed, I'm not really sure what's keeping the weight bound to the vent. The way that this entire sequence is described is not good. There would be a major difference if there was a visual diagram. Regardless, Tamba is too small for the vent and has to climb down. Chiba is presented as a choice to go up, but again, Hama doesn't consent. In the dining room scene, we view another argument that is mind-bogglingly stupid. I have nothing else to say except that Hiroaki is the messiest written character I've ever seen. He's supposed to be bratty but clever, but in reality he's just inconsistent, annoying, and changes personalities on a whim. We then move on to a group game of 2 truths and 1 lie, and it's honestly pretty forgettable. It's not a big offender like we'll see later on, but although this idea is cool to have your characters interact in a manner like this, it doesn't really drive the plot forward. In Daydreamer, however, we get introduced to the worst gay slop.
Takeshi, good morning.
You're already down here? How early is it? I haven't even heard the announcement go off yet.
I'm always up early. It gives me a few good hours before the... ilk wake up and roll in here.
I would like to put my foot down and say, if you think this ship is in any way compelling, I think less of you. This dynamic is not only excessive in quantity, it's also unhealthy, and I genuinely don't think Vaughn realized this when she was writing some of these scenes. This episode isn't really interesting enough to go off of. We're mostly hearing the same info, but with some questionable lines.
I dress well?
Very well. Better than most of the others in here. representing street orphan culture or whatever it is they seem to love so much.
I don't think this is intentional, by the way, but as you'll see later on, I don't think Vaughn is aware of the implication. In revisiting the plan, the group once again decides to talk about the potential candidates for climbing up the— How many times have we been saying this now? Higurashi, for whatever reason, decides to press Kamimura for being apprehensive, and he switches to baby mode.
Because you're scared.
Alright, you know what? How about putting your money where your fucking mouth is?
Takeshi, did you hear that? Tell me you heard that. He's threatening me.
Chiba once again is presented as an option, and Hama doesn't consent. And Sasaki also doesn't consent. Kamimura brings up Chiba's age. She's 17. Did you know that? Did you know that? It takes us this entire scene for us to agree on Tamba teaching her safe rope climbing, and Hama finally consents. What an exhausting process. Now, would you believe me when I say this vent arc is put on hold for the rest of this chapter? In the laundry room, we witness a conversation between Shigeki and Sasaki that's not really much to write home about. I'd like to point out though that after all this time, we're finally seeing characters question their location and trying to find a common denominator between the cast.
But then I'd have to have a deep conversation with Hiroaki.
Misasaki, for you and you alone, I will throw myself on that blade.
We then move on to the interview room where... Oh, I suppose I didn't explain this part. Let's make this quick then. These scenes are known as student spotlights, where a poll-winning character can be made to be interviewed with 10 questions. These scenes can vary in importance from knowing what favorite skill your character likes to finding out that a dead cast member is a rapist and completely assassinate her character. Sorry. I don't know what came over me. If you have to ask me where hardest questions lie on that spectrum, it's the former. It's nothing important. Even if it were important, like an episode I'm eyeing dangerously right now, it's not really a point towards the story because that shouldn't be an optional content. We focus onto the storage room, where Watari goes on top of Hayashi to see if there are any new mattresses and such. And the rabbit comes to their call and confirm that not only are their storage room items limited, but that breaking your mattresses is a violation of school rules as it's counted as property. I guess the writer didn't account for what would happen if you pissed yourself scared. Or spilled your night water? Either way, it's a dumb limitation. Later on, we switch to Hasegawa talking to Isano in his room, and the conversation that ensues is very... weird?
No girlfriend?
Girlfriend?
In the dead of night, though, we get introduced to a motive.
This announcement will be followed by an alarm to ensure all students are awake and present. It will then repeat until all students have gathered.
Well, after 2 minutes of that. I get that this is supposed to be realistic since this is having everyone come in gradually, but it's just annoying for the audience. Anyways, we get introduced to the motive.
Until a killing has taken place, students are prohibited from sleeping within school walls. Students are prohibited from sleeping under any circumstances. If a student is suspected to be sleeping or on the verge of falling asleep, you will hear this sound.
So, we can acknowledge how stupid this is, right? This is a motive akin to Danganronpa 2 Chapter 4, where you are basically told, murder or die. It's not only making your death game pointless, but it's also not how sleep works. At a certain point, your body will engage in microsleep, and at that point, the entire student body is put up in a firing squad. Tetro never really addresses how the human body works, and it makes you accept this. In fact, it just kind of reminds you how stupid this entire motive is when a character triggers the first portion of the alarm because they're dozing off. If you think I'm exaggerating, I'm not. They stay awake for 72 hours! Aside from that, we're also told that we are made to play a game every morning that promises rewards if we complete them. And we move on to the first game of this chapter, the confession game. The premise is simple. Each round, an unattributed secret is spoken by the rabbit and must be pressed by the person who is related to that secret. If any round is lost, there will be no reward. Interesting premise, right? How can this be fucked up? First up is Hasegawa, who has witnessed the death of his sister when he was young. Next up is Keizo, who has been in a relationship with 8 different people separately. Oh, I think I see how they can make this fall flat. Hayashi's secret gets revealed that she has killed someone, and nobody really presses it. Chiba asks about the victim, but nobody really challenges it. You'd think a fact like this would cause everyone to treat her with suspicion, but I guess everyone here has their own sinister six. Anyways, Hama is revealed to have been in detention centers, and this starts a bit of back and forth about civility and oh my god! Wada is revealed to be a foster child, and while it takes a vow of silence to proceed, we come to find out that Isuno has put her older sister in the hospital. Makes you wonder why they haven't been doing this in the first place, and why they won't continue to do it. So, what's next?
Round 7. This student has been in an intimate relationship with a teacher.
Whoa!
Yeah, whoa!
Oh no.
Sasaki Hitomi has claimed the statement. That answer is correct.
We're not talking about it. Next question.
I think maybe we are talking about it.
Gross. I get that this is supposed to be supportive, judging by Tombo's follow-up question, but no. Just no. This makes Rotari come as invasive and insensitive. Hiroaki is outed to be a former addict of narcotics that once put themselves in debt.
Enough waiting around.
What's a narcotic?
Did I mention she's 17? Kamimura and Hiroaki get into another non-argument. The alarm sounds, and in an interesting moment of storytelling, Okazaki presses the button early, preventing it from being fully spoken. Future players won't stop the round like this again, so whatever. Shigeki has an abusive household stemming from alcohol. Chiba has been hospitalized for malnutrition, and spins away from the topic in a good way. Watari forced her parents to go through a divorce. Tomba injured a competitor to advance in her field. Hiroaki acts cringeworthy.
Do you live to provoke people?
Yes.
Tsuno lied about taking a vacation when in reality she was undergoing rehab, and Kamimura turns out to have failed multiple suicide attempts. And in the final round, Ojima is revealed to have PTSD as a result of CSA.
Ojima Takeshi has claimed the statement. That answer was correct.
There are so many issues with this. So let's just start. First, nobody has to acknowledge anything either by maintaining silence, plugging their ears, or pressing the button early. The fact that nobody decides to do this after finding out respectively is a case of selective intelligence. Second, the severity of these secrets varies, and I'll be honest, except for Hayashi, you don't have to give a fuck about any of these. For a death game that has players that have never known each other until these 5 days, why should anybody care except for the pressing issue of a murderer, regardless of the morals behind it? Third, the presentation of Ojima's secret borders on, is shock value. This is supposed to be a mic drop moment, what with the black screen with text and everything. It's disgusting for a show that claims to treat the subject matter seriously, which you'll come to find out later on, it doesn't. And finally, this is treated with so much more gravitas than Sasaki's secret of statutory rape. The way that this game is played, you can't really escape this issue because Ojima's last. However, I think you should either match these secrets, have them scale in severity, or end it with Hayashi? I would say this is the grossest this show gets, but no. We'll get to the grossest scene soon. After the previously mentioned Lapse episode where Kamimura experiences a breakdown which had some pretty great voice acting, along with being paced well, albeit with a weird cut in the background, we are then treated to a 5-minute fuckfest of how a narcissist treats a partner's mental health issues. We're in Hiroaki's room and witness a confrontation where Ojima tries to press Hiroaki about his former, mind you, former drug use.
Why are you mad at me?
Oh, hell. I don't know. Maybe because you're running around doing drugs and putting yourself into debt.
The whole scene that acts out here sounds like a conversation between a mother and son, but is actually between two people that don't know each other. Ojima oversteps his boundaries and forces him to speak, and Hiroaki is careful to not overstep his boundaries when he tries to talk about his secret.
You don't want to push this.
I think I do want to push this. That's different. We're not talking about that. I'm serious, Nakamigawa. I'm not ready to talk about that. Not here.
Okay. Breathe. We don't have to talk about it.
This is plain and simple abuse, from the tone to the reasons justified by Ojima. But I don't think Vaughn realizes this. Not with the ship art she's making. Moving on to Homeside, you're going to see the first instance of a trend that's very prevalent in later chapters. First is the shallowness of non-male characters in their arcs. After having their deepest secrets revealed, Suno and Isuno had to get a vow of silence, by the way, They both shrug off that whole experience and talk about something that's just not that deep. Second is the consistent way that male emotions are taken more seriously. After Wada suddenly breaks down mid-conversation.
Wada? Whoa, are you okay?
Nobody's looking for me.
The next episode is, and I'm not even kidding, a cheer-up session in service of Wada. In this cheer-up session, Wada reveals to Isuno that he actually watches her streams and he's an avid fan. Considering the privacy issues Sona talks about later, I'm not really sure why she's not taking the opportunity to distance herself from her or anything. On the contrary, she invites him in. It's all very bizarre, but this is a me thing, I imagine. After a few scenes that aren't really noteworthy enough to delve into, we then move on to the decision game. Not to be confused with the other one. You'll notice that this episode is 42 minutes long in comparison to the confession game's 13 minutes. Is it more jam-packed? No. Is it interesting? No. Is it written better? God no. Welcome to the decision game, a cautionary tale on why you need to have proofreaders. First off, the pacing of this episode is atrocious. Tetro decides to keep at it with 16 rounds again, and I'll be honest, I don't even think Vaughn knew how to fill in that gap, judging by the prompts each round. Secondly, there's no reason to play this game. There's no reward, and this isn't as a result of a punishment. This happens just because. Now, let me tell you the premise of this game. The decision game randomly selects a unique participant and gives them a random punishment. They then have to decide whether to inflict it or to take the punishment by a random participant. On its own, this isn't a bad idea. But again, this just happens. After a minute or so of shit-slinging from Higurashi and an alarm, the rabbit hits us with sass and the rules.
That's everyone. Rabbit, explain the game.
You know, I never address you as girl.
Seriously, I have no idea what this sass is coming from. Once everyone understands the mechanics of the game though, we begin. Shigeki opts to take a blow to the stomach by Ojima, and round 1 is over. A siren sounds to commemorate the first round, and Hayashi is up next, who takes a slash across her leg by Hama. Suno brings up the idea of bandaging up people after receiving their punishments, and I'm confused as to why the rabbit hadn't thought of this. Well, I guess I'm not. I already said this killing game was handled by idiots, didn't I? The killing game administrators are so proud of Hayashi's stone-cold reaction to being cut, that they dispense another siren as a reward. Next up is Isuno, who chooses to pass punishment of a day 1 water restriction to Suno. I think you can guess how this game falters. This cowardice isn't rewarded though, so we immediately move on to Higurashi, who chooses to inflict a slash across Shigeki's back, and he realizes halfway through that he has to do it himself. After an extended back and forth about Higurashi being squeamish, we finally get this round finished with and hear Shigeki do his best impression of a werewolf.
Thank you for your participation. Round 4 is now over. You may return to your spots.
This was so stimulating to the killing game hosts that they pressed the siren by accident, and we move on to the next round. If you're wondering what's causing all of these sleep alarms, it's from Kamimura, who apparently is the only one almost microsleeping. Chibo is chosen in the next round, and she chooses to restrict Hama's food privileges until the next killing takes place. Okazaki is picked next, and has to pick one of 3 mystery juices and drink it. In a beast move, she picks Hiraki because, yeah, fuck that guy. After that, Sasaki is chosen next to decide who gets a stab on the hand. Someone finally brings up the disproportionate punishments, and the rabbit just goes, nuh-uh.
What? That's not fair! Everyone else only got slashed. Hand injuries are serious. They last.
Miss Sasaki, please make your decision.
But you're putting me in an unfair situation.
The game is very fair.
It's not. My punishment is disproportionately severe.
Miss Sasaki.
Hiraki and Sasaki do more arguing, and after almost making a rash decision, she decides to pick Shigeki. Shigeki then does his second take of a werewolf impression. And then the siren sounds to let Shigeki know that they're taking a cut. Hama is next, and he gets the worst curveball in history in the grand scheme of things, and forces Hiraki's student profile to be revealed. Like, who cares? Another argument ensues, and Kamimura gets the option of a slash across the cheek. A novel idea considering his blood can't clot, but this is the 3rd slash-related punishment, so it might as well be nothing. Watari gets another mystery potion that smells like rubbing alcohol, which I hope it isn't, because that would kill her instantly, when she decided to drink it. Harada takes a burn on his hand, and Ojima takes a slash to his arm from Watari. This cooperation is rewarded with another alarm. Tomba's round comes up, and she prematurely decides to lock Kamimura out of the dormitories for dozing off. Tsuno is next up, and she gets the option of being strangled or strangling someone else for 30 seconds. She decides to take it, and Wada is randomly chosen. Oh boy, here we go. After some promises from Tsuno, Wada gets strangling. Not hard enough, of course.
Harder. Your grip isn't tight enough.
Let's just go through why this is so bad. So much of this arc between this trio is really just a parasitic relationship where Wada gets coddled all the time. The potential gets sucked out from both the two characters, putting them into what is basically a nurturing role for a character that's not all that compelling regardless. Combined with the fact that Tsuno shrugs this off and won't think too much of this after getting choked out, and the constant apologies while he is quite literally choking her, all makes this for a hilarious watch. But I know that's not what Tetro's going for, and I don't think Vaughn realized how unintentionally misogynistic this all feels. Anyways, after that, Wada immediately gets chosen next and drinks his own mystery juice. For the last round, Hasegawa chooses to get branded like cattle, and the lines ensuing are...
Jesus! This thing?
That's huge!
Oh. Wow. This isn't gonna feel good, kid.
Yeah, I don't think Tetro knows what this sounds like.
Please be careful with the iron. It's quite hot.
Seriously, why does it care? And that is finally the end of the decision game. All in all, this suffered many of the same problems the previous game had, and then some. If you feel like you're able to take a breather though, well, you're wrong. Because we're treated to a 9-minute session of Hiroaki painting Shigeki's nails in dialogue that I can only describe as using those nails to scrape across a chalkboard.
Why is that one different? Your ring finger. Why did you paint that nail blue?
To match with Ojima, see?
What? Why?
Because he's my most common accessory. We need a unifying element, thus, blue nail.
I don't know what it is, but Hiroaki's personality is so flamboyant that I feel offended. We see a talk between Tomba and Hayashi about the potential consequences of lashing out at Kamimura, and speed the devil, we have 6 minutes with him and Hasegawa. At this point, it's kind of testing my patience with the abundance of these scenes, but this is still fine.
And I promise I won't let anyone bother you while you're not feeling well.
Oh yeah? What are you gonna do?
It's just really self-indulgent. After the second game, Watari finally asks about the reward and we're told that it will come soon. We switch to Tsuno opening the door for Wada, and like I said before, it's another lift-up session for our poor little baby boy. No hesitation from Tsuno, no fear of physical contact or anything of the sort. It's as though it never happened. Gross. After some time though, we finally get our rewards. These rewards vary, from a manga box, a stuffed animal, to a butterfly knife. Sasaki brings up the idea of knowing everyone else's reward, and others can test for privacy, but I can tell you a quick fix for this issue right now. Have a trusted person look into your reward, and they only relay whether or not it can be used as an instrument to murder. Again though, nobody here is given the opportunity to show their intelligence. There's a lot of back and forth about framing or whatever, but it's all kind of silly. If there's any dent or blood on a bat as Hammer posited, if it was a different bat than the one you were given, then that's moot. After some vomiting from Wada, someone, finally, sleeps. It only took the third continuous day of sleep deprivation though, so while everyone should be dead by now, I suppose things are moving. We have games to play though, so the cast reconvenes in the auditorium for the Salvation game. It's not really an interesting game, but the gist of it is a trivia game about how well you know your fellow students, and the prize is a de facto immunity by making your murder pointless. I'll avoid talking your ear off about what each round outcome is because like before, this is also 16 rounds. It's not as lengthy as the decision game, but it still overstays its welcome. However, I would like to direct your attention to a disgusting writing decision.
Question 2. Which student among you has the highest grade point average?
Sasaki Hitomi.
That answer is correct.
Wow, I wonder how her GPA got so high.
After seeing Hiroaki do that, Ojima scolds him like he's a dog that knocked over a plant.
Just leave her alone for once.
Just so we're clear, this is the most Hiroaki will ever get reprimanded for making fun of a rape victim. Just... please keep this in mind, anytime Tetro tries to touch the subject again. In fact, after that, Shigeki is revealed to have cheated in his previous relationship, and he's reprimanded more by the cast than Hiroaki for the rest of the story.
Which student among you committed infidelity in their last relationship? Yanagi Shigeki, please state your answer.
That would be me.
What? That answer is correct.
Yanagi!
What? Not cool, man. Seriously.
I'm losing my mind here! At the end of it though, Isuno wins and transfers protection to Wada. In the laundry room, we see Sasaki and Ojima having a talk, and if you can believe it, neither character discusses what the fuck that guy said. Wada is checked up on by Suno, you know how the story goes.
I brought your manga and your blanket and the really gross microwave chicken thing you like from the freezer.
What is she, his mother? Another unimportant student spotlight with Hama, and now we finally know the punishment for sleeping in. The rewards are shuffled, and you don't know who has who. It's an interesting idea, I suppose. I'm not sure why we're bringing this up now when it's the end of the day, but I digress. We see a conversation between Hama, Chiba, and Harada, and after a while, we find Isuno dead in the kitchen.
That doesn't even matter
Isuno?
Something is finally happening. Because the sleep rule is lifted, everyone decides to have two standby next to the body, and the rest take a nap before they begin. It's not really landing though, considering the length of sleep deprivation we witnessed. Everyone reconvenes later, and after dividing up into pairs in one trio, the group gets to work. If you've noticed, there's no autopsy report. It's not because there's a crime scene cleaner, but to prevent tipping the scales, which I guess is fine. I'll try to be neat and tidy with my summarization here, so get ready for a stream of info. Isuno was killed with a blunt object, one blow to the front and the rest to the back, which likely indicates a grudge or a lack of experience in murder. There's unfinished cooking, which is odd considering Isuno is a pre-made type of gal, and there's rice under her body, suggesting that this was the murder site. There are bloodstains on the back of the fridge wall, on the fridge, and a drop of blood in the dining hall. She was last seen with Wada and Suno, leaving to do work in her room by her own admission. The incinerator has no signs of use, and Okazaki fields the idea of a bucket of water being prepared in the pool to wash up during nighttime hours since there isn't any water during that period. Ojima, Tamba, and Watari talk late in the dorm halls, and Hiroaki was inside Ojima's room. At some point, an unidentified person went into a dorm room, and Hasegawa, Chiba, and Hama came to join the conversation. For the majority of the night, Hasegawa was with Kamimura in the medbay, and there was a stash in the storage room that is presumed to be Hiroaki's, judging by its contents. There are some half-empty bottles in the medbay, and empty jugs of water for Wada by Suno. Finally, there's a bloody storage room towel in the men's locker room, which can only be opened outside of nighttime. I won't talk your ear off here about the tracking of the rewards from the incomplete exploration of the dorms, because there's no visual aid to help that, so I'll just put my notes in here. On the surface, this is a fine set of clues, gathered which has a fair level of difficulty and guesswork. But judging by the next notes I have, you can probably guess how this is executed. With an impromptu introduction, we quickly get into the topic of alibis, and we run through the alibis in the hallway. Ojima's alibi gets scrutinized from before the hallway, and the time to clean himself up is judged as unrealistic, so we move on. If she was killed around nighttime, that is. We then get to the point of her time of death, and the group is made aware of Suno's testimony, that she was last seen shortly after the nighttime announcement sounded. Hama asks to switch to the topic of the murder method, but I'd like to tell you now that this is, in fact, sidetracking. I get that it's there so the cast knows how she died, but scrutinizing everyone's alibis from 10 PM is still a solid plan. I'd like to put a disclaimer now that this is likely a case of B being heavily subjective. I'll let you decide how valid it is, and how much intelligence the cast should be able to exert in this story. During the retelling of the state of the kitchen though, we get to the clue of the wall/fridge smudged with blood, which is suspected to have been an original hiding place for something. This leads into the towel Hasegawa and Sasaki saw, where the owner of said towel says why it was like that.
That was mine. Don't worry about it. There was an incident. It involved some bleeding. It's not related to Isono at all.
An incident?
I was working out, minding my own business, doing my own thing. When my fucking demon arm took over, I was pretty much locked in a battle for my life. The demonic forces were overtaking me, you know? It happens. So, being a badass and all, I fought off my demons. But, you know, they got a hit in.
Was that when you dropped that weight on your toe?
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
I don't think you need me to explain why this is a terrible red herring, right? I'll still do it anyways, but I hope me and you at least know what's what before I start. This is what I like to call Danganronpa stupid. If I had to classify what is and isn't Danganronpa stupid, it would be something along the lines of this. What isn't Danganronpa stupid is using a talent as a key element of murdering someone, characters remaining in kayfabe, and, you know, just not breaking the fabric of reality that the story's established. But what is Danganronpa stupid is having a whole sequence about ghosts or something tangential that anyone with a functioning human mind should just brush off. Unnecessary threads or tangents that don't really add anything to the story whatsoever. I'm looking at you, David Chiem. No character noticing your garbage or pointing it out. And this. If you remove this clue, what will be lost? Nothing. Nothing at all. And just so we're clear, Tetro wants you to take it seriously, so anything on this diagram wouldn't make this case better, just more uniquely stupid. Next up on another example of this is the terrible continuing gag of X was poisoned by Tamba. We lose 4 minutes of our human lifespan, as everyone else didn't teach the idea of shaming her for this. After that and some more alibis, we're left with Okazaki, Hayashi, Shigeki, and Sasaki unaccounted for. We press Shigeki, where we have an extended beatdown session over him cheating.
It's been awfully quiet.
Well, we already know he's got a thing for being a great big fake liar, so it's not like his testimony's all that useful anyway.
Huh?
Oh yeah, you weren't there. Apparently, he cheated on his girlfriend. Last act. Where do you get off on acting like some kind of prince when you're running around breaking girls' hearts?
Why? Wada snaps because of this in a way that also wastes precious time, and Hayashi is cleared by Watari and Tamba, and we move on to Okazaki. She has an alibi that I can only describe as beast mode.
I didn't go anywhere.
Huh?
I stayed in the auditorium.
But it was closed.
I know.
So you just let them lock you in?
I did.
Are you an idiot, perhaps?
I don't think so. I wanted to see the game be set up.
Huh?
Yeah, the auditorium gets locked every night, and yet every morning there's a new game set up.
They're knocking her for this, but this is genuinely a smart moment from her. And then they have a dumb tangent about the secret door. Chiba presses Hasegawa and Kamimura about the latter's alibi since the bathrooms are closed, and we find out that he was in the storage room. Sasaki presses further, and Kamimura presses back about her own alibi. She apparently was in her own room. Sure. Anyways, during all this, we get into another tangent about the rewards and the suspicion of Shigeki with his reward swap being Hayashi, and the rewards found when it turns out that shit doesn't even matter. It's really all a blur to me, even reviewing this a second, third, fourth time. We then get to the storage room stash. We find out it's Kamimura's, he pouts because his boyfriend doubted it a little, and Sasaki at some point brings up the worst question in her own defense.
So now we're back on those same 6 people.
Then allow me to comment in my own defense. You were in the hall, right, Tamba? Did you see me leave my room even once?
Well, no.
Did no one think to ask what signs of life there were in the first place to indicate that she was in it? We bring up the water jugs, it's a red herring. We get to Okazaki. She's cleared except for the fridge bullshit again, and then this is used to clear her in combination with the drop of blood in the dining hall. I wonder how one can mess up the foundations of mystery writing this hard. We get onto the topic of the rice under the body, and we come to figure out that the killer was cooking before murdering Isono. We get to more scrutinizing alibis now that the time frame is better known, and Shigeki is forced to recount his alibi in more detail, and then Tamba derails the whole fucking conversation with accusing Kamimura again, and then we have a recess since Kamimura collapsed from stress. This continues into the topic of his health condition, where I guess Hasegawa is scolded for protecting his partner? How we got here feels very silly. And then we go back to Shigeki's alibi and press it further, where he's cleared because of his chivalry. Jesus. We then get into the topic of the storage room and how it was skimmed during the investigation. Hiroaki proposes a theory that the killer would clean themselves up with the items in the storage room, hide it, and run out in their underwear.
Ditch the bloody clothes, run back to your room in your skivvies, put on a fresh outfit, and get back to whatever it is you were doing.
But they would have passed Yanagi.
Yanagi.
Huh?
If a girl ran past you in her underwear, even though she's a girl, you'd tell us, right? You wouldn't hide that for the entire trial just to be a gentleman, right?
Yes, they are in fact doing this. This then sends Hiroaki into a string of thoughts about the picking order for the investigations, but like, 1, it was spontaneous, and 2, why have Watari there and not also her? It's a horrible line of attack. I'm not kidding when I say this whole sequence felt like it was written with L's theme blasting in the background.
So you made sure he'd be the one investigating the storage room.
That's entirely circumstantial evidence! You're basing your entire theory on guesswork!
And if he saw you half naked running through the halls in the middle of the night, he'd definitely keep that to himself.
What are you even talking about?
That would also explain why he's been so quiet this whole time. Man, you probably turned his whole world upside down. Fair Dahlia.
Kill me? Is that really the right thing to do?
It's very, very cringeworthy stuff. We get to the idea of clearing everyone else's alibis, which, yeah, fair point. But then hilariously, Hayashi and Suno are mixed up. Everyone voice acted this, she captioned it. What was she thinking?
Tamba and Hayashi.
There's no way it was Hayashi. She's all about justice.
Is she?
Tamba's got a violent history too, right? So then what about her?
Honestly, I hope it was Tamba. Honestly, I hope it was Tamba. Shut the fuck up!
Anyways, she's stinky, so I guess we're clearing that. And then we clear Hayashi because of her strength, which only leaves Sasaki. Wow. After that, Sasaki gets her own stats, right? Hiroaki gets to do the murder recap because I guess he's smart for doing this. Wada gets on his soapbox again, and then all that's left to know is the why done it. If there's anything you can't fuck up, it's this, right? With the secrets, the decision game as contrived as that was, the attitude she had with the group, the reward swaps, there's so many to list off here that could work. I would like you, the audience, to guess what it is. Is it the reward swaps? The result of the confession game? The attitude she had towards the other players? The spontaneous actions during the decision game? Alright, time's up. If you guessed any of these, you're wrong.
I was so tired. We were just talking. I was so tired.
It's quite the waste. After another angry moment from Wada, and some kowtowing from Yanegi to die in her place, we finally get to the execution. Is that at least good? Nope. I wouldn't even bother describing it to you. Have fun. Okay, I'm being a bit harsh here. I'll tell you something about it. It's the equivalent of showing your friend the first draft of such a scene, asking them what they think of it and the symbolism behind it, and then just recording all of that. It's lame as fuck, and I honestly would rather every student to be executed take a shot in the head or something, rather than this self-indulgent garbage. Next up is the backstage visit, where we see some of the Killing Game staff interact. Can you guess how much this really matters to the plot at hand? Not at all. The next episode, if you think this isn't the end of this roller coaster, is a one-sided conversation where Hiroaki vents to a brick wall for 7 minutes about his fifis.
I need you! You're the only person in this awful fucking place that I actually have on my side. I need you.
And then, for the final touch, a final message from Isuno on Wada's desktop. I guess this is a really touching moment. I couldn't care less. And that's the end of chapter 1. What a fuckfest! Now, as you can see, this chapter had so many problems with it. From the inconsistent pacing, the unrealistic motives, the bizarre writing decisions, the shock value, and any lack of compelling anything? It's a weird case where I don't have anything to say about this retrospectively. The end of these chapters always leave you with a headache that can't let you form a coherent thought. And whatever lesson there is to take away here in the future chapters, let it be this: have someone read your shit. While it won't ever get as egregious as Hiroraki's snide comments, the quality will drop further and further and further. The couple has their first fight, and while it's done well, the way it resolves itself is just weird. I can't describe what about it irks me so, but if I had to put it, it's that the original conflict is put on the sideline for Hasegawa opening up. We have a scene where Watari cheers up Shigeki by dancing together, and the stairs for the second floor open up. In the art room, we have more of that gay slap.
You know, typically when there's a model on the pedestal, they take off their...
See? Instant.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
The AV room with the dark room in it. The drama room where, this happens after some bashing on Shigeki for cheating.
Ta-da!
Jesus Christ.
What do you think?
Pool balcony. Classrooms. Office with an intercom. Staff room where Okazaki joins Watari on the shenanigans. Music room. And the library where Ojima describes Hiroaki in a very funny way.
He just says whatever he wants. Even if it's really, really annoying.
It's quite an understatement, buddy. Hiroaki quizzes Hasegawa about his personal life for whatever reason, and Tamba and Kamimura make up in the dark room. Chiba approaches Hayashi in the auditorium for advice about being taken seriously, which, frankly, I'm not sure how that's an issue. Can you see anything about this 17-year-old that's not worth taking seriously? Her solution for this is to teach her how to swear. Sure. This all gets resolved in the next episode, where she apologizes to Hama for calling him a shitbrain. Late at night, we see a conversation between Hama and Hiroaki where the former talks about his time in juvie, and the latter, the info that Haruda has his drug box. Again, overstays its welcome, and it has Hiroaki in it. After that, we get to the start of an extended scene with Hayashi and Shigeki where he tries to find the supposed bloody items that Sasaki had in the storage room. I know that Big Feelings comes directly after this, but we'll get to that in a second since it also has more episodes to it, for some reason. It's not like the show is really concerned about lengthy episodes regardless. Anyways, these scenes explore the reason why Shigeki is doing that, and it's the standard chivalry shtick. Hayashi asks how this lines up with him cheating, which I don't think is comparable with the physical violence that Shigeki used in example, but I digress. As plain as this character's ideas are, it's still something. How will Tetro treat a character that overcompensates for a genuine mistake they've made, to the point of almost killing everyone? Would you believe me when I say they fucked this up too? In the meantime, they find the clothes stuffed in a box, and Shigeki runs off somewhere, leaving Hayashi to clean up. With Big Feelings, we finally return to the vent arc, which centers on Chiba's obsession with the vent plan working out. It's an interesting idea, but I think the intent for Chiba this chapter is just too incoherent to be good. Wada and Shigeki reckon with their roles with the last chapter, which, again, is a fine idea if it weren't these two constantly being the center of attention. Like, what does Suno feel about this? Anyways, Ojima and Chiba try to catch the rabbit with lettuce, and here, we find out that it is biological, and that the cast are assigned ultimates. There are so many questions I can put forth right now, but none of them were answered by the end of Pink. I'm serious. We know that the black spots grow larger or whatever, but Pink won't tell you why. It's puzzling. The rabbit is called Monomoko, but I'm not calling it that.
YBG Don from DC.
What's your name?
YBG Don.
I'm not calling you YBG. What the f is your name?
It stands for something, young, black, and gifted. YBG Don, that's what I stand for, Queen. You don't like that?
I'm not calling you, hey.
Well, you
YBG, where you at? I'm not doing that. What's your name?
This call me Don, but YBG is what I stand for, young, black, and gifted.
I call you Don.
Alright, cool, that's cool.
After this, Ojima goes into his room with Takeshi and has a panic attack. You'll notice this a lot from now on, but oftentimes, Ojima will be a tool to be used to make Hiroaki look good. It's something I can't really look at in good faith after that. Chiba gets imbued with the powers of LARP by Hama, and Ojima talks to the better gay slop duo about the ultimate reveal, who think about tabulating them. Shigeki and Wada go to Isuno's room, and the former leaves Wada to talk to an empty room. You already know how I feel about this, but I'd like to point out how awkward it is. You're stuck with this guy suffering through survival skill for like 4 minutes. You think this scene of them tabulating ultimates would be boring, but worry not. You've got some more wonderful interactions with these two.
Where's the... What's with the crowd?
Put some clothes on.
Do you seriously reckon?
They just lay it on so thick. Anyways, we move on to the Princess Cafe. It's not really noteworthy, but I do want to let you know for no particular reason, Shigeki and Hayashi are being shipped in this scene, and Hayashi's voice actor is in fact the creator of Tetro Pink, Vaughn. No particular reason for bringing this up, I just think it's funny. We finally get to some real plot though, being the next motivation.
At exactly 12 o'clock, an epinephrine gas began entering the school through the ventilation system. This is a low-grade gas that will be constantly output throughout the coming days.
It's fine. It's not as offensive as the murder or die sleep deprivation like before, but it's purely biological, not really psychological. We can already see how it's quickly affecting some students, and by some, I mean Kamimura. This guy can't catch a break. Next up is the— oh shit! Okay, well, it's about 20 minutes, so it probably has something of note, right? Not really. If you want me to cut down all of the new shit, it's more reward tracking, fridge packing in the staff room, and Wada's officially part of the club now. Higurashi starts tweaking because of the gas, in combination with the withdrawals, I guess? He runs to Haruto's room to search it by force, which, if the room is locked, he can't do anything. I'm a little confused here. He doesn't find anything though, and gets scolded by Ojima again. He breaks his own room trying to find it, and punches Hama in a rage, calming him back down. After that, he vomits in the bathroom next to Ojima. It's a bizarre sequence considering what? It's almost the second week now since he went cold turkey on opiates? Yeah, it's opiates by the way. Another argument with Kamimura and Hasegawa, you know the song and dance. Higuraki's in the dumps right now, to the point where he idealizes suicide.
I can't do this anymore.
Imagine how much better the scene would be if it didn't beat you over the head as to why he's like this. Hama and Chiba have an argument about Chiba overexerting herself that leads to Hama leaving. Wada learns how to cook and opens up about his food insecurity leading to bad eating habits. Taba keeps pressing Shigeki about him cheating like it's any of her business, and Kamimura talks about his condition to Suno for advice. After that, we get an extended scene with Hayashi and Shigeki that reveals why he cheated on his ex, which— buckle up. Shigeki wasn't in a physically and mentally abusive relationship, and he blamed her actions on himself. At some point, he talks to his ex's best friend and cheats on her, after which, her best friend tells his ex about this and proceeds to share revenge porn of Shigeki. Okay, so let me be clear when I say this. I have no problem with any story trying to touch the subject, nor any of the subjects that are discussed later on. My favorite visual novels and shows have been delved into topics that have been hard to stomach. However, the way that this is tagged on to Shigeki is almost akin to wiping his slate clean, and it forces you to empathize with him, making whatever depth that could have been had with him and his morals completely dry up. You're going to see this with the surviving characters and primarily in Chapter 3 with Wada, but this story has a case of what I like to call trauma porn. Before I start on this tangent, I would like to say that I acknowledge that Vaughn's writing on Tetro is an extension of herself, a way to navigate through the experiences that she has suffered, and that if you have resonated with any of these scenes or some characters, that is completely understandable. People find touching moments in places that they wouldn't expect, and I'm glad that you had a better response to these scenes than I did. I do want you to genuinely think about what makes you so attached to this story though. As for Vaughn, you still need to think about your plot structure. Loading so many heavy subjects without any consideration to the progression of the characters, story, and really not saying anything new is just exploitative. So much of the things that happen in Tetro happen because it's there to get a rise out of the audience. And it's so excessive that it inadvertently cheapens those serious topics. I recognize that there's a place for these scenes, and that some characters are not meant to recover from their trauma. It's a thing that happens in real life. But judging by the way that Bond treats these characters like they're growing, I don't think that's the intent. And even if it was, it's excessive. Tangent over. I honestly have no energy left for this episode and the protection Hayashi wants to extend once they escape, so I'm just gonna move right on. Harada talks more about his life to Chiba, and then we witness a scene where Wada is interrogated by Shigeki about Sasaki's reward, to the point of blocking the exit of the library. I'm not really sure what spurred on this plotline, but after a while, Suno comes in and confirms Wada's statement. Wada just shrugs this off and plays tag. In the dining hall, Higurashi and Shigeki start arguing about Sasaki, and then Shigeki starts pummeling Higurashi. This was so random. There's not much Suno can do for all the injuries Higurashi sustained, so we just have to move on. Chiba's interview is nothing important, but I would like to highlight that a good chunk of these answers are just thinly veiled seeth posting from the writer about how, in fact, Chiba being 17 is just ridiculous.
What is a 17-year-old supposed to act like? How do you want me to act? Because it kind of seems like everyone just wants me to act however they want, whenever they want. And I kind of think I just want to act however I feel like acting. I see. How am I supposed to act? How do you want me to act? Am I supposed to be doing, like, I don't know, taxes or something? I wouldn't know. Maybe just mind your own business.
It's really funny. We come to find out that Hayashi has Shigeki tied up in the AV room. The group decides to have guard shift to make sure Shigeki doesn't die or do anything unexpected. And I won't really bore you with the details here, because it's either random conversations, sexually charged comments.
I'd let Hayashi zip tie me. Look at her!
Watari!
She's so tall!
Or things like patching up Hiroaki's face. Just keep in mind that at the end of it, Hayashi frees Shigeki. Hama and Chiba make up, and Chiba says that she'll be trying the vent a few more times before bed. The next episode is titled Purple, and you can probably guess who it contains. It's more of the standard schlock, albeit with some boundary pushing.
Why do you even know that?
I mean, it was kind of big news, Takeshi. Especially if you're in business. He was pretty respected. When one of the richest guys in Sendai suddenly gets thrown on trial and all this stuff starts coming out about him racking up white-collar charges and beating his kids and stuff, it kind of gets out. Plus, I'm into true crime.
I think this is probably one of the worst things you could say. At the very least, though, the vent arc concludes in the next episode. Concludes with her death? Yeah, you don't even know what the vent leads to. Too bad. Anyways, I'll summarize, so get ready for the stream of info again. I won't be talking about the alibis in this summary because it'll just be repeated in the trial anyways. But if you care, feel free to pause and check the notes that were made during the trial and investigation process. There were signs of activity in the dining hall. Chiba wasn't wearing her usual clothing for climbing. The ladder used for climbing is disassembled. Blood is spotted in both the middle of the boys' and girls' locker rooms, and some characters discuss alibis in the hallway. There's nothing in the library and art room outside of a few moved books and a hypothetical.
What's stopping me from just killing you right here?
What?
It's just hypothetical.
There isn't anything important in the drama in AV room outside of them having stairs that lead to the auditorium, the place Chiba died in. Wada confronts Okazaki after she keeps belittling Chiba's intelligence and the creativity of the killer, and in the midst of all this, we have a scene where Hama and Harada cry. Sure, why the hell not? Onto the body, we see that Chiba's neck is knotted quite tightly, and she has blood on her neck, fingernails, mouth, hair, and on her gym clothes. That's right, she has that under her pajamas. On top of that, there are 2 separate bloodstains in the mattresses once flipped over.
Gloves?
No time. Welcome to crime scene investigation.
Just take them off for now. Here.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice try. You get some, not the whole damn bottle. Shit's tiny.
Regardless, thank you.
Nice nails.
Ooh, writing! In the bathrooms, Okazaki forces Wada inside a bathroom stall to test his claustrophobia. I think we're meant to sympathize with him? Really, it's just beast mode for Okazaki if you know. She didn't get character assassinated. Hiroaki has a panic attack because Ojima is unavailable on top of the incinerator already running, and what do you know, Ojima's back. The medbay is our final stop, and it's the messiest of the bunch. There's burnt objects, ash, a pungent smell, drops of blood, missing inventory, and a fucking gun. In the next episode, holy shit, is that Benjamin? The rabbit gets scolded for shit that honestly doesn't concern the audience. You really only need to digest the contraband part, but you can already glean that from the previous episodes. The investigation is finished, and we're summoned to court. Like last time, you can easily cross off suspects, but you can't definitively prove anything, not unless you've been really paying attention. Seems like a good setup for a complex case, right? I'll leave the reveal for later, but you can solve this before you get any new info from the trial. The first topic of the trial is discussing Hama's body discovery, which quickly broaches into the time of death. She was last seen by Hama as you saw earlier, but no one has any memory of seeing her after that, or her going in and out from people like Hayashi and Shigeki, who were together. She keeps her door unlocked, but trust me, it won't matter. With someone bringing up dry blood, we go over the investigation results. Hasegawa made the mess in the library, and Okazaki talks about the experiment she conducted in the bathroom. She gets reprimanded, and where I would say I side with her, I just can't. It doesn't really matter though, since Wada was with Tsuno anyway. The crime scene group talks about their findings, and once the part about the mattress comes up, We quickly talk about the other areas with blood, but the group decides to rule out the other sources if possible. The medbay smudges are addressed first, and it's highly likely that it was involved. The locker room blood is also probably relevant since nobody spoke up. And then Tamba jumps to conclusions again for the bloodstain in Higuraki's room. This causes a whole mess, and we go back to the dormitory investigation, which discusses Sasaki's room, which is unusually clean, but not because of the killing game administrators. Higuraki is taking the journals, but that's not tangential to the case right now. Watari's sleepover group being her, Tamba and Okazaki aren't being straightforward about the burns in the medbay, so put a pin in that. We get to Kamimura passing by the dormitories to grab a toolkit, and he's pressed on why specifically he grabbed Hasegawa's toolkit, an answer you can smell from a mile away. It's not really a death sentence though, considering Sasaki had her own toolkit in the first place before it got wiped clean, not to mention the other dead players. We find out that Hayashi had Shigeki zip tied to her bed while she stood by the door, which causes the reaction you'd expect. The blood in Higuraki's room turns out to be Ojima's, although he doesn't know why. That's the end of the dormitory recap, so it's on to the worst case Lob Duos recap. We get to the incinerator, and Higuraki makes the call that whoever split up during the investigation is a possible suspect as it was likely turned on in the middle of it. This, somehow, goes back to Kamimura, which then goes into scrutinizing his alibi when we find out that he was in the medbay at some point while Hasegawa was out. We get Wada's alibi confirmed, and we finally get around to what the hell happened in the medbay.
For a while, yeah, but then we thought it might be cool to go down to the medbay and try to summon Sasaki's ghost?
You shouldn't go messing with undead spirits like that.
It's just girl stuff.
It's not as stupid as Hama's locker room shenanigans, but it's still really bad. Kamimura didn't really go into the medbay regardless, but we now know that the blood was after that ritual. This branches off into the gun found in the medbay, which, hilariously, Okazaki clears Kamimura's innocence by making him pass out through firing the gun. This then goes into the topic of the bangs that apparently happened, where there were 2 big bangs in the dining hall, 20 minutes separate from each other. Okazaki goes to check it out by herself, where we realize that the AV room has a stairwell to the auditorium that isn't locked up during nighttime.
But then I realized I could just get into the AV room. There's no door to the stairwell, just a curtain. So, yeah, I just went in. No problem.
What?
Was that not intentional?
Dude, you work for this killing game! When she looked in the auditorium though, she didn't see Chiba, but only the ladder on the floor. After some talk about the timeline, we come to figure out that the first bang was the gun, since there are only 2 rounds spent, and the second was from the ladder falling. This then gets into the possibility that Okazaki missed her, as she could have been in the vent when she died, where we figure out that the blood in both locker rooms was from her when she was inside. This then narrows down into the people who can fit inside the vent, and you can probably see where this is going. If not, boy do I have a bridge to sell you. Wada and Kamimura are already cleared, so this goes into the logistics of where she actually died. Taba does the whole poison bit again. Do people find this funny? During this rebuttal though, we gather that she was slashed in the neck, and then we start checking alibis during the night. Hayashi's alibi gets scrutinized as she wasn't in the sightlines of Shigeki, but Shigeki wasn't sleeping a wink, so it didn't matter anyways. It's then Higuraki's turn to get grilled, and we then find out that he relapsed on opiates to go to sleep. When he went to the medbay, he had found the bloodstains, but not the gun during that time. During this, we find out that Okazaki has poor peripherals, which makes her realize that Chiba was above her when she was investigating. The idea that she wouldn't look up to the vent or anything of the sort is ridiculous, but I'll move on. The incinerator is still a loose end that we can't tie, so we move on to the craziest part.
Hey, call me crazy, but here's an idea. What if Chiba's the one who fired the gun?
What? For what reason would she even have the gun in the first place? We then get back to the possible rope climbers. Wanna guess how long it takes for them to connect the dots? It not only takes them forever, they also get sidetracked about the gun ownership and find out that Okazaki lied, which isn't tangential whatsoever. They even have the time to let Higuraki have his own moment, and then through the incinerator timing during the investigation, they find out it's Harada. But wait, there's more. It turns out that the adrenaline also affected the tiger, making Sawa a Yakuza-style boss fight for Chiba.
Hey, I can get behind it. Tigers are just like house cats, but bigger. Oh, sure. It's so cute when they're about to maul you.
What are we doing here? He wouldn't have noticed that she was acting up or anything? Whatever.
This caused Student 2 to fall forward, catching his neck in a rabbit snare. Student 2 was hanged instantly and died after several minutes. The remaining students were dismissed soon after. Somewhat ironic, if I do say so myself. The hanging, I mean. It's worth noting that Student 2 hung up Student 3's body in a very similar way.
Ooh, writing! Anyways, not Ian examines the rabbit to see what's up with the black spots. It's fine, I guess. Watari apologizes to Hama for not keeping Haruta in her sightlines, and that's the end of Chapter 2. This chapter was probably shorter to write because of the lack of things happening. Don't get me wrong, things happen, as you saw with whatever Shigeki was doing, but it's really a slog in comparison to the offensively packed previous chapter games. This still suffered a lot from the same issues that Chapter 1 had, but with more disjointed elements in the mystery writing. I still don't understand why Chiba has that gun, and frankly, no explanation could make me accept it. The only fun part about this chapter was Okazaki's brute force method of investigating, so I had hoped to see where this would develop in the next chapter. Let's just say the monkey paw curled. With no one able to go through the vent anymore, the plan is now officially abandoned. Watari has a formal meeting with Okazaki about what the hell she was up to in the last chapter, which resulted in Wada leaving the club. Wada and Hiroaki try to comfort Hama, and we witness a conversation between Hayashi and Suno about the latter's selflessness to the point of physical and mental exhaustion. I'll be blunt here, this is an obvious character arc for Suno, but it's also going to be the most boring one, as it isn't really unique to her. In fact, a lot of the female characters have an issue with this, like Chiba as previously discussed, Hayashi in the future where she has this but with more physical injuries, and for the present, Suno. We come back to the previous group talking in the medbay to the dead for 12 minutes, and I won't bore you with the details here because it's nothing new, but I want to say that yes, they are trying a redemption arc for Hiroaki, and I'm not here for it. Ojima gives Hama a picture book that he and Chiba were working on at the time. Hayashi is cooking and Tamba brings up the idea of a restaurant, and the food is served to the surviving cast. After this though, Wada throws back up his food in the bathroom, and Suno tries to tell him that his eating habits are unhealthy. Listen, I get that this is meant with good intent, but as someone with a similar dietary issue, you don't navigate through it like this. It's like telling a smoker that it's unhealthy. They know! Anyways, the second floor is open, and in it has a chemistry lab, engineering lab, wood shop, secondary incinerator, a locked room, a computer lab where Suno snitches on a protected computer. What are you doing? We also have a council room, rec room, guidance office where Okazaki talks like a BetterHelp therapist, and finally, a server room where Suno confronts Okazaki. The survivors recap their exploration, and we begin the medical intern series, where people visit Shigeki and Suno in the medbay. The first patient is Wada, presumably for his eating habits, and I think after seeing Wada's ribcage when he takes off his sweater, Suno goes to the storage closet for a moment. Shigeki then proceeds to recount his relation to an eating disorder through her sister, and I think through watching this scene, I kind of understood why I hated this plot point so much. Wada isn't being treated as an equal here. He is infantilized, and the comments toward him are almost judgmental.
But if you were eating enough every day, you would... You're just so thin.
Do you want this person to not open the door from the other side? What is wrong with you? You want to know what she was doing in the storage room, by the way? Next up is Hiroaki, which you can imagine devolves into shit-slinging, and some more exposition about how his grades went up when he started taking drugs like heroin, and his parents didn't care either way. I don't think this is how you write about emotionally absent parents, in my opinion. For the last one, it's Hayashi, and it's...
You were totally off the ball. What was going on?
Nothing. I was, I'm just a little tired. What?
You like my...
What? I don't. I mean, that's not...
After that, though, Shigeki checks up on the two preppers for the restaurant, and offers his services as a waiter. Hasegawa is sad because Kamimura won't call him by his first name. Ojima talks sternly to Shigeki about what he did in the last chapter, and we're up for another student spotlight. Okazaki's is up next, and for Pink, it's nothing special. It's just a shit show for whoever wants to put up with Blue. Kamimura is annoyed in the chem lab while he makes luminol, and the next episode takes place in the dining hall called Restaurant. It's 23 minutes long, and it is bad. It's vapid of any real meaning. Let's talk about it. Now, if this scene was completely optional and separate from Pink, then this slice of life fan service is fine. But when it is required, it is slop. Want me to tell you what meaningful part of this comes back up later on? The leftovers are used for evidence. For the rest of it, it's just random bits for shippers like Kamimura calling Hasegawa by his first name and stuff like that. It's not interesting. And the reason it isn't is because nothing is happening. In other visual novels, like, for example, Umineko, there's a really out there scene where Jessica, a daughter of an aristocratic family, invites a servant boy named Cannon to be her pretend boyfriend. While this is fan service, and it admittedly draws out a bit too long, it still drives the plot forward, where Jessica tries to come through to Cannon's humanity, but at the end of it, Cannon rejects her because he believes that he is unworthy of love, merely furniture, and breaks her heart because he tells her that she's offering a dream that he literally cannot grasp. Despite its pacing, it's still trying to convey something, and it's setting up for scenes in the future. What is this Restaurant episode doing though? Nothing. Nothing at all. I'll spare you the grueling dialogue, so let's move on. Suno breaks down in front of Hiroaki about her futility in trying to help, and we move on to the motive.
Until the next killing takes place, the temperature in the building will be lowered by 5 degrees each day. This will continue until the building has reached a temperature that is no longer conducive to human life.
The motive is not good. About on par with Chapter 1's. During this, Ojima physically lashes out at the rabbit, which doesn't result in punishment. After this, the rabbit gets creative mode from other staff, the two gay boys clash about some shit we don't care about, and Watari becomes a hot pot ghost.
You'd have to be a real stupid fucking writer to make that into an actual story.
Huh, you think? Hama gives Hayashi his jacket, Wada gets the obvious result of reporting this.
No, come on, no, what? Did they fight?
And we begin the torture saga for Wada, sponsored by Okazaki. First off, Wada gets trapped in the server room with no lights on and gets a panic attack, which turns her from a blunt and rude investigator to an out-and-about asshole. Tsuno confronts her for this, and Hiroaki does the worst cheering up I've seen done by anyone.
On here, yeah?
I guess so?
You certainly dressed like it.
I think Vaughn sometimes forgets that the characters she's writing are supposed to be human by her own standards. Watari does her second round of scolding, Tsuno gets a break, Wada talks to Hayashi about the wiped computer, Hayashi talks to Shigeki about the locked door and potentially busting it down. The writer reminds you that the motive is still ongoing. Twice. And then, Wada gets kicked in the ribs by Okazaki over and over again until she feels like she threatened him enough to never talk to anyone. This goes on for like 3 minutes. Tamba spontaneously burns her bridge with Hayashi, Hayashi cries in her room while Shigeki fails to support her outside her room, and then boy talk happens. Shigeki comes to Hiroaki for advice on how to approach Hayashi in this time, and it then extends because he believes Hiroaki has more knowledge with dating women. This then starts a tangent about their body count? Shigeki then casts doubt on his experience with women, which Hiroaki goes into detail in response about how his relationships with women are really just transactional and for publicity. Nice guy over here is confused about why that is, and then he says the line.
Don't understand how—
It's because I like guys! I don't love any of them because I like guys.
I've already talked before about how Tetro fails to show, not tell. But this one is especially strange because this doesn't even add anything new to his character. It really only serves to add a glass pane to the coffin that was his existing relationship with Ojima. Anyways, Tamba and Tsuno talk to each other. Kamimura talks about his lethargy and depression to Hasegawa. Wada goes to Tsuno. Hayashi finally tries to break down the door, and yeah, the result isn't pretty. She's shown to everyone in the auditorium as a final warning before lethal force is enacted last time. You don't have to care about what the staff think about this punishment, but Pink will push it on you regardless. Wada snaps in the dining hall for being approached, and Hiroaki forgets his character development by telling him about the reward. In a lapse of judgment, he goes back to his room and breaks everything. He goes to help Wada out with the stuff he's broken and learns that this is because of Okazaki. Watari goes inside of Okazaki's coat for warmth, and Shigeki examines Wada. Ojima argues with Hiroaki, which results in the latter leaving. Kamimura trips a death flag with Hasegawa, and Hayashi wakes up in the medbay. Tsuno has a "I think I might die" moment, and then Ojima catches Hiroaki on his way to swallow cyanide.
You can't just do that! That's so fucking selfish! You can't do that!
No, they didn't. They didn't just...
So, you were just going to leave me a note?
But this isn't about you! God! Whatever. Moving on, everyone snubs Okazaki in the dining hall as soon as she comes in, and Tsuno checks on Hayashi. And then Hasegawa finds Kamimura's body. Not just his body, mind you, but his decapitated corpse. Put a pin in the fact that Hasegawa specifically finds his body like that. Now, let's ask ourselves, who has no issue with injuring another player, and has the determination to cut off someone's head? It's Okazaki. It's obviously her. Call it jumping the gun, but let's be serious. Who amongst the cast right now is willing to do that? This is so obvious that I had actually just written an angry paragraph in place of keeping track of this investigation. So I won't bother recapping everything because, frankly, this whole investigation is pointless. I will point out something funny during the boys' dormitory investigation. Wada is so obviously framed with the fake threatening letter towards Hasegawa and a printed key and saw in his room, and the pair don't even think about the elephant in the room. When it comes to the body, not only was Kamimura decapitated, but he also had his tongue cut off and his stomach torn open. I wonder who could have done this. That's not the end of this though. When Wada and Tsuno go to the wood shop, Tsuno opens the door and dies from a spike trap in front of Wada. Let's just be honest with ourselves and call it for what it is. Fridging. If you're unfamiliar with the term, I would loosely define fridging as a character that dies or suffers physical or mental abuse purely to motivate or anger another character. This is not the same as a character being motivated by the loss of a character that is fully realized, so to speak, but rather a character that only exists to service another character. This is often attributed to female love interests for male superheroes, but this is not limited to them, but more so a consistent problem in that space. The important distinction is that while one is done in respect to both characters, fridging is done for one character at the cost of another. One is obviously better than the other for narrative reasons. One is good, the other is lazy. Now, do you think Tetro Pink leans into the former, or the latter with its deaths? In case you forgot what happened to the murder victims thus far, in Chapter 1, it was Isano Miki, who was struggling with online recognition and being a shut-in. Her body was found by her friends group. In Chapter 2, it was Chiba Airi, who was striving to be taken seriously despite her appearance. Her body was found by a friend she had just made up with. In Chapter 3, it was Kamimura, trying to find his value in the world, and Tsuno, trying to help everyone to the point of neglecting her own health. Their bodies were found by the people closest to them. See what I'm getting at? This pattern won't continue for the future chapters. However, the future victims will be women, who don't really have their arc concluded. They are only there to traumatize the characters who were important to them. If you think that their arcs ending prematurely is realistic and that makes it justifiable in any way, I highly recommend to ask yourself why that is. The icing on the cake here is that Tetro decides to let Wada linger as a silhouette before ending, as if this was a mic drop moment. At some point, Wada stabs Okazaki for getting too close to him, and she's sent off into the medbay. After some investigating though, we begin the trial, and I'm not kidding, this lasts almost an hour and 30 minutes. Lord have mercy. The trial starts with the topic of Wada stabbing Okazaki, which then goes into what she actually did to Wada, since it was only known between a few people. Everyone confirms it, Watari snaps at Okazaki, which then goes off into the note and planted evidence. I'm really surprised at how people like Hiroaki aren't immediately dismissing it as nonsense. Tamba scrutinizes his alibi, they talk about how Kamimura's unconscious body got moved to the art room, Okazaki accuses Hasegawa, and then he's cleared because of the fucking body discovery announcements. Talking about the injury sustained, Hiroaki makes another questionable comment.
Have a point though, we need to...
So what? He's a cutter?
Like, alright. They talk about the potential of a sedative, and they reach the conclusion that Kamimura's tongue was cut off so that he couldn't scream, which, if you know just by trying right now, you would need a tongue to do that. Hiroaki fesses up about having taken cyanide for you-know-what. Shigeki has an argument with Hayashi, they touch on Tsuno's death, and conclude that the two murders were committed by the same person. They start tightening on the conditions for someone to be a suspect, and Okazaki questions how the body moving wasn't spotted. At some point, they realize that the murderer was planting evidence during the investigation and start accusing Shigeki. This then devolves into another shit-slinging contest about what people have to lose, and Hasegawa has his moment. After that, they eventually get to suspecting Okazaki. In the stupidest way possible, though.
In plain sight.
How, though?
I'm not sure what you're looking at me for.
It wouldn't be the first time we've seen you hide an entire person in your coat.
You can't honestly be serious.
Watori's a lot bigger than Kamimura too. You definitely could have hidden him in there.
Do you genuinely not understand how stupid this sounds?
Yes. This is the moment they start realizing, after an hour of debating, they get her to open her coat, and it's stained with more blood than it should for a stab wound. This is how they catch her. Well, at least we get to know why she did all this, right?
What the hell?
Kun.
What?
What is she even?
Is that my cassette player?
Kun. Huh? My, look at you. All your neurons firing today, I guess. You finally picked up on the hints I've been laying down for, hours now?
What the hell? Who are you?
Well, I shouldn't be surprised. Abandoned templates this easy to kill was bound to have some problem figuring things out. The streak of white in a starless, desolate sky. The phantom thief of Nagoya.
Phantom? What?
It's just like for some.
He's saying this about a murderer that killed his friend for no reason. Well, actually, not for no reason.
What the fuck is going on here?
You killed her over a completely fictional rivalry.
Fictional's a stretch.
Just so we're clear, Kamimura's death was planned, and she rolled the dice on Tsuno's death.
So Kazutoshi
died for nothing. That's about right. It was an easy shot and the quickest way to get to Minami.
And Minami
died for love.
Well, I'm glad we stripped her moral grayness in favor of this, right? Just keep in mind that this apparently wasn't enough for Vaughn, so she decided to also tack on sexual assault on her resume post-mortem. This garbage goes on for 14 or so minutes, by the way, but I'll save your sanity from it. She does her own summary of what happened, she gets voted out, and she gets executed.
Nishi, in our next life, we'll be foxes, okay? In that life, and in the next life too. I will follow your flame.
Good riddance. The rabbit modifies the conditions for body discovery to not have it as a mark of innocence. Ojima breaks down from trying to stay connected with reality. Tamba apologizes to Hayashi. Hiroaki offers to spruce up Wada, and Watari talks to Ken one-sidedly. The end. If you were watching this for the first time, and this was your last straw, then this is completely understandable. You probably should have left as soon as possible, but I was no saint person. I had a script to write, so I moved forward regardless of how angry I got. Now, the show won't make you angrier by this point, but don't get it twisted. That doesn't make it better. You just can't really beat a peak like this. So let's just move on to chapter 4. Hey, I know you might be overwhelmed by the amount of nonsense that we had to deal with, so I'm putting this interlude here as a time for you to take a break and grab a snack, come back to later, or for any other reason like that. I have to obviously do the YouTuber thing where I tell you that not everyone is subscribed, so, do that, and follow me on other socials. It's been a real pain in the ass trying to make this video due to the sheer quantity of videos Tetro Pink has produced. Pretty soon, on the 28th of September, I'll be live streaming on Twitch to play Silent Hill F, a game that has its story written by one of my favorite authors, Ryukishi. The time isn't decided yet, so follow me on Twitter or join my Discord for any future announcements. That's all from me though, so let's continue on. This chapter starts off with Wada getting a haircut, which reveals his new outfit, streetwear that you can only get from mobile. In the new floor, there is a home ec room, a supply closet, more classrooms, dance studio, school store, garden supply where Wada finds a lily, balcony with a metal shutter, student cafe, resource room, sewing room, archive, and a courtyard where they recap their findings. Hasegawa still isn't responding, so over some concerns about his state from Watari, Hama gets him to have him open the door. Taba and Shigeki discuss their careers, and Hayashi starts a training regimen for Taba. After a bit, Ojima is approached by the rabbit, and after some unanswered questions, the rabbit starts glazing Ojima for whatever reason. The rabbit speaks more cryptically, and at the end of it, gives Ojima a gift. This starts a series of the rabbit getting a conscience without the audience knowing as to why. Shigeki gets psychoanalyzed by the rabbit about why he's so chivalrous, and Taba opens up about her feelings toward Hayashi regarding being alive this long. After speaking to Watari, the rabbit gets a final warning, and yes, physically abused by not Ayan. Shigeki gets ghosted by Hayashi before he can try to make amends for being too reckless in the last chapter, and we witness a scene between Hiroaki and Ojima where they talk about his spray painting of the shutter, which goes into his trauma. For some reason, I can't help but feel that this isn't Ojima's time, but rather Hiroaki's, as if the writer was retroactively trying to better his image after what he said to Sasaki. Hayashi and Hama talk about their pasts, Shigeki serves the rabbit at the student cafe, and after this, the latter suffers a crisis of conscience. Hasegawa suffers with Survivor's Guild, and we get lectured for half of the episode before the rest of it is dedicated to Wada explaining to us what his trauma is. Wada talks to Shigeki about his previous food insecurities, and we are treated to 25 minutes of an interview with Watari. This is a weird moment where some of it is justifiable, but you have to wonder why this is locked behind the condition of winning a poll rather than writing this in your main story. A lot of it though is just...
Which two students in your session do you believe would make the best couple? Go on. Go on.
Yeah, her generally being unserious. Her lack of seriousness outside of this interview makes me so frustrated, and I wonder why she was the only one treated like this. You also have to wonder why the only dark-skinned character is getting a kind of Orientalist talent. Next up is Boozes, an episode that untangles all of the trauma that both Ojima has and Hayashi regarding an experience where she was abducted and abused by an acquaintance of her father, which led to her escaping and eventually killing him years later. Now, this is going to be a very controversial take, and I want to acknowledge that I know people that have watched this exact same episode with similar experiences that have realized things about themselves because of this scene. I can understand that people can find this scene good, but I don't think it's earned. I don't want to go too in-depth about how I felt and my proximity to this topic, and feel free to tell me how you reacted when you first watched it. But the well was too poisoned for me to accept it as it was. So much of the subject matter we discussed before was handled so brazenly, and Sasaki especially with her experience of statutory rape. Why does Tetro think it has a right to try and tackle this subject again? It's all just very bittersweet to me. Moving on, Hama reads a story to Wada, Hayashi makes up with Shigeki, Hasegawa tries to reckon with the loss of purpose in life, and the rabbit gets abused some more off-screen. We get to the motive this time, and it's darkness. The remaining cast are given flashlights they need to shake to work. Not the most compelling, but it's better than another murder or die. Wada starts doing the morning announcements, and Ojima goes to the medbay for digging in his stitches while zoning out. Hasegawa gets knocked out before he suffers a panic attack. Watari opens up about the reason for forcing a divorce on her parents, and Tamba talks about her being forced into a profession by her father to the point of physical abuse. It's the same problem with the lore reveals previously discussed. Random question. Did you like Suno's crying in the storage room? Well, I hope you're ready, because Wada's about to panic in an empty room for 4 minutes. Amazing. Watari vents to a wall for 6 minutes, and we end the day with her pessimism beginning to show. The next day, Hama questions his faith to a wall for 4 minutes, and Shigeki asks for advice on how to confess to Hayashi. I'm not joking, by the way. Hama and Tamba talk, Watari breaks down at seeing the shutter painting, and Wada laments about the lily dying to a wall. Shigeki does a health checkup on Wada, and Shigeki violates HIPAA. Watari pleads to the rabbit to no avail, and we move on to the next day. Watari shows her life story to Hama through fire dancing. Yeah, the way it's shown is just kind of funny here. Anyways, Ojima starts to buckle under the darkness, Tamba starts to get paranoid, and the school club has another meeting. We're due for another student interview, so let's see who it is.
You are not Ojima Takeshi.
Yeah, he's not coming. Thought someone should probably tell you.
What?
He's totally out of it. He's not coming.
Oh.
As much as I knocked this writing so far, this was actually pretty funny. Watari has a sweet moment with Hayashi, and Tamba instinctively pushes Hiroaki as a result of paranoia, and he almost falls down a flight of stairs. Now, he should have developed his character enough to be understanding as to why she's so jumpy, right?
You bumped me and I panicked.
Tried to kill me!
I didn't!
Tamba, what the hell?
Nope, guess not. While Higurashi was complaining about this to Shigeki, they suddenly realize that something is smoking, only to find out that the school is on fire. Hayashi runs ahead, and the rest stay in the pool for safety. Eventually, the smoke clears, and we find out that it's none other than Watari, burned to a crisp. I'll keep it brief, but Hama thinks it's a suicide judging by his experience last night, receiving a first and second note at different areas. At some point, the arsenal room opens up and is revealed to the cast, and Wada finds a chunk of metal in the sewing room. Because of how damaging the fire was toward the structure of the school, Shigeki falls through the archive floor and gets promptly rescued by Hayashi. Higurashi almost gets crushed by a wall caving in, and the cast finds out that they are underground. After some time, we start the trial. Hama immediately recounts the second note she found where she was going to end it all, and Higurashi comes under suspicion for being nearby that night. Shigeki clears him, and Higurashi fires back at Hama. The cast start a tangent about the cause of death, and eventually, the topic of her mental state comes up. Hama snaps at Wada for trying to expand on it, sure, and extrapolating on the student profiles from the archive. The group starts badgering the most suspect for alibis. Hasegawa is first up, and he stayed in his room all night. When asked about what he means when he said that he has light, it's implied that he cut himself and used luminol. Let's just gloss over that. In the middle of Wada providing his own alibi, Higurashi starts shit-slinging in Tamba's direction about her shoving, and Hayashi backs up Tamba. Higurashi then fails, again, to show any character development and starts bashing her. Ojima is up next, but he's out of it at the moment. This somehow goes into a theory that some of the cast is seriously considering where he committed the murder while dissociating. At some point, the suspicion circles back to Higurashi, and this results in chaos as Tamba is doing her usual theorizing, and Higurashi isn't having any of it. This sight is so repulsive that Shigeki vomits, and the cast are given a break. When we return, Hasegawa expands on his theory that the fire started in the sewing room, and they pinpoint the exact time that the gasoline in the sewing room was present. This exonerates a lot of people who were grouped up at the time, and after some time, they get into the topic of how and why she decided to end it. Using Wada's evidence of a chunk of metal behind a door, Hasegawa deduces that Hama slamming the door to the wall when he bolted out after reading the second note triggered the fire, which then killed her. She did this because she knew that if everyone got the wrong answer, at least someone lives. Even in death, she can't escape the fate of servicing someone. The only risk in this is that Hama would just need to practice basic awareness and look further as to why there is a pungent smell of gasoline in the room. It's quite the lethal case of selective intelligence, and the addition of Watari's spiral into despair isn't really helped by the fact that it was triggered by Okazaki, of all people. It all makes this chapter very, very wasted. But we still have to go through executing Hama, so die he shall.
Ninth Circle Full-Body Demonic Takeover. Awful name. Sounds like something out of a shonen manga.
I agree! Anyways, staff talk about shit the audience can't care about without supplementary reading. Higurashi breaks the news about their location, Tetro sets up the next location of Blue, and Higurashi switches personalities on Hasegawa. Thus concludes the end of chapter 4. All in all, it suffers from the Okazaki-shaped hole in the room. I'm sorry, Watari. You deserve better than this. We start this chapter off with Hasegawa explaining selective mutism to Wada. Higurashi informs Shigeki about the final floor opening despite structural integrity, and Wada breaks down over seeing the new garden with nothing but dead plants.
Why did they let one flower live and everything else die? Why is the lily still alive? Why is the lily still alive when everything else is dead?
You see, this is actually a clever metaphor for his survival skills. Hayashi is frustrated over her helplessness, and the blondes talk about Hayashi and how to best support her. Higurashi suddenly finds his reward, and Shigeki and Hayashi are given a ship scene. Ojima talks to Higurashi about why the writer isn't letting him evolve past being an asshole, and tries to game the script by making him apologize to the group. Would you like to know that he goes back to his same old habits anyway? Honestly, I'm surprised everyone took it at face value, especially Hayashi. Tamba finds a typed death threat directed towards her, and starts harassing everyone gathered. This leads to the natural endpoint of Higurashi's role in this play, which is to remain an asshole like the script tells him to. Tamba keeps laying it on him even after this scene, and Wada finds out that a camera is plugged in. Higurashi vents to Ojima, Tamba decides to stalk Higurashi, and Ojima accidentally grips Hasegawa a bit too hard. Higurashi catches Tamba, and in the next episode, Marumoka approaches Wada about the lily.
propose a deal with you.
It offers to make sure the lily stays alive on the condition that Wada can't ever know what happened to it. I imagine this is a cool moment, but for those who haven't read the supplementary work, this feels completely random. Hasegawa laments to a wall, Hayashi gets a bucket full of gasoline dropped on her, and we're introduced to the next motive.
All power to the medbay will be cut off.
What? Who cares? So we won't be able to turn on the lights in the medbay. What's the big...
The cold lockers. You can't do that. You can't!
As of now.
Oh, they actually thought of something psychological for once. Anyways, Shigeki and Hayashi are back to... Why am I getting deja vu? Higurashi starts feeling nauseous from what is likely food poisoning, and Wada's stash is gone. After stumbling onto another trap, Hayashi snaps and starts interrogating everyone one by one. You don't have to ingest anything from the next episodes about this, by the way. The rabbit calls everyone to the auditorium, and it's time for the return of the games. The first game is the defense game, where each round, a student receives an envelope of a personal advantage at the cost of a random sacrifice. Nobody will know what any sacrifices are until the game is finished, nor who decided to take them. It's good on paper, but let's see how it turns out. Ojima decides to decline getting exclusive access to the arsenal in exchange for limited rations until the next murder. Tamba doesn't comment on her own envelope, but it's likely that she took the deal. Hiraki is next up, and to own Tamba, reads out his own, being a master key to the dorms in exchange for the medical bay turning the heat up. Shigeki decides to not read out his own envelope, for whatever reason.
Didn't accept it, I promise I didn't.
Then why not read it out?
Because I think it would be best left unread. We can talk about it later.
He won't tell her about it later. Hasegawa is up next, who rejects the quote-unquote safety suite in exchange for relegating everyone to the second floor. Wada doesn't comment on the envelope nor his decision, and Hayashi declines getting everyone's reward in exchange for the files getting scrambled. Now, the results are the locking of dormitories, the halving of investigation time, and a collective punishment of everyone taking a slash across a random body part. Are you kidding me? Yeah, it's the same as the decision game's punishments. It's completely disproportionate. The game lasts around 10 minutes, and the rest of the 8 or so minutes are the slow crawl of these punishments. They all use the same knife passed along, and the slashes aren't really significant except for Hasegawa, who gets the short end of the stick with his eyeball. Hiraki gets angry at the lack of responsibility, and Tamba claims the investigation sacrifice. After this, he decides to relapse on cigarettes. Hasegawa is apparently high, Hiraki seems to be suffering from an allergic reaction, and Wada passes out from lightheadedness.
I'll come see you in a bit.
Okay. Love you.
Ooh, yowie! Shigeki now falls ill. Ojima is drunk, and the bodies are starting to rot. No time for us to be concerned about it because it's now time for the cage game.
It's as simple as it sounds. All students will enter the cage. You may exit the cage at any time. However, if you do exit the cage, you will be instantly eliminated from the game. The last student remaining in the cage will be rewarded.
Let me guess.
Yeah, it's just a Mr. Beast video. I won't bore you with the details, it's mainly third-wheeling for those who aren't in a relationship, shit-slinging like it was chapter 1, and at the end of it, Hayashi wins. The next episode is more vapid arguing, and Hiraki goes back to his prime asshole era.
Oh, it's why you passed out today? You're wasting the life that she fucking gave you! You're killing yourself!
This plot is so ridiculous that Hiraki needs to take a breather and relapse on heroin. Hasegawa realizes that he's being watched and drops an absolute bomb.
I don't really have anything to say to you. If you're watching this as a fan, though, what the hell is wrong with you? Sorry, just... I can't wrap my head around how you could enjoy this. You know that we're dying, right? We're dying in here?
So pretentious. The note game ramps up, and the two female characters left start getting their fair share of notes. Hayashi gets hit with another bucket trap, where she gets another note. And then Tetro makes the biggest offense in human history by giving Hiraki Sasaki's journal and have Wada read out her experiences of statutory rape. Whatever thoughts I could blurt out right now, it could all sum up to this. Ojima was right there! What a fucking mess. Anyways, before Hayashi's interview comes up, she gets a pipe bomb in the shape of a book. After the interview, Wada talks about his manga to a wall, Ojima is drunk again, Hayashi doesn't fall for it again, and Shigeki vomits. Another ship scene, and we're finally back to plot. The loyalty game. This one's a full 36 minutes, so strap in. So, you might think to yourself that the title's eye-catching, right? What's the premise?
The rules are exceedingly simple. Each student will have 3 opportunities to play. When your turn arises, you will be asked to select one of 2 options, truth or dare.
Yeah, it's just truth or dare, but evil. We're unsure of the parameters that judge whether or not someone is being truthful. It's not like they have a collar or something. So, let's ask ourselves, how can you circumvent this game? Just pick truth every time, and have everyone else close their ears as you say your answer to the void. Crazy, right? It's a very out there strategy that took me a few rewatches to figure out.
He didn't want anyone to know what he had.
Wow, crazy! My ears are covered and I can't hear anything at all.
Huh?
Oh, yeah, me too. I can't hear anything.
Whoa, you're right. When I covered my ears, I can't hear a word he's saying.
Yeah, they don't ever adopt this strategy afterwards.
Lies? Like my entire bag?
Your bag and clothing.
Excuse me?
That's hardly decent.
Like, just my extra clothes, or the clothes I'm wearing?
Both. Every single thing you brought with you from your dorm room must be sacrificed.
Just as a side note, why would you word it like this? Anyways, the game runs for 3 rounds to pad out the time, and the cast makes dumb decisions like Ojima choosing Dare and forcing Hayashi to cut her finger off, Hasegawa forcing Hayashi to lose 25% of her blood, Hayashi losing food for the remainder of the game, Hasegawa piercing Hayashi for— holy shit, man! Talk about laying it on thick! Have you ever seen a woman be fridged so hard that there's leftovers? Cause I sure haven't. Anyways, this whole game sucks. The premise is easily exploited, everyone keeps the same old resentments, and Hayashi is put on a pike because yes, she will die this chapter. It's the most obvious writing on the wall. Shigeki confesses to Hayashi to justify why he cares so much about her, and then her response is cut off by Tomba's fracture from Hiroaki pushing her, from her own words. Shigeki and Hasegawa get trapped in the medbay from an object on the other side, Ojima confronts Hiroaki, and whoop-de-doo, Hayashi is dead before Shigeki can even hear her answer. Anyways, let's ask ourselves, who has the least to lose from killing anyone, and who has the most to lose from the motive? The remaining gay Slav duo can't be killers, the Hayashi trio can't even think of killing her, so— oh, okay. What about the second question? Well— okay, well, it's obviously Hasegawa. Even if the gears started turning before the motive got introduced, there's only one human person here left. Again, I'll spare you the details of the investigation because, frankly, this isn't really rocket science. Areas are booby-trapped with firecrackers to discourage investigation, and Tomba breaks the news.
I'm so sorry.
No. No.
The investigation eventually ends though, and the trial begins. This is open and shut, right? Oh my god. This trial takes 2 fucking hours. If you think that intuition can't be used for a trial, well, just wait. I have nothing of note to say about this trial for the majority of its length because, again, I'll be repeating myself until the end of time. People argue about nothing, they get sidetracked, the logic is terrible, and the mystery is whatever. What's new? Well, Hiroaki almost gets it.
Actually, I'm not so sure it's a total dead end. I feel like I'm noticing a bit of a pattern here.
What do you mean?
I mean that as we've established, a ton of planning went into this thing. A plan with this many steps, put into play that far in advance? That's pretty meticulous. It'd have to be someone pretty clever, right? Pretty meticulous themselves.
What are you implying?
I'm just saying. This whole thing's pretty well thought out. A lot more thought out than someone like Wada or Tomba could handle. Credit where credit is due, you're about as clever as you are boring. If anyone was going to come up with a plan like this, it'd be you.
But the writer decided that the cast has to first accuse Tamba just because she has to fake you out. But once voting time comes, this happens.
Are you absolutely sure that you're ready to vote now?
What?
Are you absolutely sure that you're ready to vote? Are you sure you don't want to discuss the matter any further?
Hold on. Why would we? Why would we?
The staff isn't okay with this, and I'm not either. It's one thing to plant evidence that nudges the cast in one direction, but this is so much worse. A confirmation is asked, and off of it, Higurashi suddenly becomes L. Not just that, but through this, Higurashi suddenly finds out that there is a secret passage in the arsenal, and that Hasegawa sneaked out of the room they were trapped in because it was pitch black without Shigeki hearing or stumbling on Hasegawa. I'm out of here. The cardinal sins committed in the mystery writing here are so overt, you have to wonder if it's meant to make Agatha Christie roll in her grave. At some point during the recap, Hasegawa starts saying the names of characters in blue, and the administrators force a vote. So, let's hear the reason, shall we?
When Kamimura died.
Ken?
Well, I mean, that's about as pathetic as it gets, right? I was the only person in this entire building who only had one friend, and I couldn't even keep that one friend safe.
Yeah, it's because Kamimura died, and thinking everyone else was the cause, he decided to kill someone that had a character arc that I can only describe as Suno 2.0. Although, he does have a point here. He's only right because the other characters were written like that.
I hope they enjoyed the show. You were the most fucked up part about this entire thing. All of you. Go die.
Chills. I got chills. Anyways, that marks the end of the killing game for the survivors, and they're free to leave. A staff member scolds the rabbit for what it did, and we're now on to the exit interviews. Wada is suffering, Ojima is hostile, Hiraki is traumatized, Tamba is petrified, and Shigeki is who he never wanted to be. After another Sasaki journal, which falters for the reasons previously discussed, we get a sneak peek of Blue, and that's the end. Before I move on to the conclusion though, I'm inviting my longtime friend Humbugg to talk more in depth about the plot lines of Sasaki and Ojima. Take it away.
Bet you weren't expecting me to show up, were you? I heard that Miro was working on a Tetro video, so I more or less begged them to let me weigh in on Sasaki and Ojima's writing, and namely my thoughts on how their experiences as CSA survivors is handled. This is a topic I've thought about for a while as a day one Tetro fan, and as a survivor myself, and I'll be providing an abridged argument as to how I believe that while their individual experiences are handled tactfully, Tetro ends up missing the mark in looping them into the story as a whole. Ojima and Sasaki are two characters who are almost instantly introduced to us as survivors of CSA. From the get-go, there's even a difference in language used by Monomoka to describe their situations, which helps create a gap between them and their experiences, one that isn't able to be bridged despite Sasaki's attempts in follow-up. I feel that the way these two process and unpack their trauma is handled very well, actually. Between this episode and the episodes we find throughout the series, you really do get to see what is usually a tactful, candid exploration of living in the aftermath of sexual abuse. Genuinely, Red is probably one of my favorite episodes and a fantastic send-off for the story. It beautifully ties up the character arc Hiraki had with reading Sasaki's journal and wanting to keep her memory alive. However, that's the verdict when analyzing these two in a vacuum. In the context of the greater story, it leaves much to be desired. You may have heard people discuss whether moments such as Bruise, Notebook, and Forever Young are earned, and while that's certainly a way to put it, I can only understand the sentiment behind those words. Yes, Tetro is, if anything, candid. Yes, the characters can feel real. It's very easy to sympathize with them, but they are still elements of a story, and we have to step back and just wonder to ourselves what the story is asking us to believe. While indeed, it's very clear and very important to remember that Tetro is just as much as a piece of work meant for someone to reflect on their own lived experiences, and it is still a work that is making claims about the world around us via these characters, and thus we must must ask ourselves what exactly those claims are. Ojima is a character who I believe of the two is handled far more well. He's alive to process what happened to him, and while between his time with Chiba, Hiroaki, and the others makes it clear he hasn't completely withdrawn into himself, we still find that his most pivotal moments all hinge on his experience as a CSA survivor. Of course, it's a key part of his character, nobody can deny that, but everything else about him is often framed, whether explicitly or implicitly, around those experiences, an example being his relationship with his brother. This is an issue I believe is actually unique to Sasaki and Ojima. Tamba, for example, is a character who struggles with parental expectations and a desire to live her own life, and while it's easy to understand that these issues have a shared origin, namely being her very expectant parents, Tamba is ultimately awarded with the chance to explore how these issues impact her without having to return to a central event in her life, unlike Ojima. But ultimately, I understand it. I really do get why this character is in this way. Indeed, I can appreciate that Ojima and Sasaki as characters were written, again, from the perspective of someone who never expected Tetro to get any traction, and it is an unpacking of the emotions around these sort of experiences. I still think it's important to unpack just how said experiences are unpacked for an audience. It's really easy to see these characters as people, and for that reason, we have to ask what sort of impression we get for CSA survivors based on their experiences and how those can influence how we see the world around us. With that being said, we can move on to Sasaki. I can absolutely praise Tetro for being able to make sure she's not simply forgotten after chapter 1, though I have my hangups with her role in the story after her death. She's reduced to a sort of plot device to contrast Hiroaki, Yanagi, and Mai. Given how strong the juxtaposition is between Hiroaki and the living students, and with how he remembers Sasaki and how the other students, namely Yanagi and Mai, remember Sasaki, it feels like a deliberate decision in the name of trying to make Hiroaki out to be more sympathetic, by having him remember Hitomi both more positively and more actively. Beyond that, the storyline with Hiroaki specifically, even if I do ultimately believe that, it was rather nice, and I do like the idea of it, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. What little we know about her writing comes in the way of Nakamigawa's own development, with her journal being used as a device to further buttress his character growth. Further still, the few times we hear her writing verbatim, it is explicitly about her trauma. All of it comes together to give the impression that narratively, Sasaki was reduced to her trauma and the fuck-ups she made in the killing game throughout the rest of Tetro, in a way that makes it come across that the abuse she experienced from her teacher is an inextricable part of her. As a survivor myself, I can appreciate this sort of conflict with Sasaki, where she doesn't know if she's gonna become Wolf or Little Red, but it comes across as if the experiences of Ojima and Sasaki, even despite how well fought they are in relation to those characters themselves, are turned into simple tools for the sake of furthering the story of other characters. It seems almost as if the two of them are whittled down to these experiences of theirs, with the story repeatedly choosing to limit our vantage point into their minds just from the perspective of what happened to them as children. It's an odd thing where I can understand and love these characters, yet I'm hardly a fan of how the story chooses to use them. And while I don't want to say their storylines need to be some sort of moralizing about how things always get better, it's bitter to watch how their trauma is almost treated as if it's the only interesting thing about them from a storytelling perspective. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thanks for coming on, and follow him in the links below. Honestly, the real offense here is the idea that any of these characters changed. Wada was always vulnerable. Ojima was always non-combative. Hiroaki was always combative. Tamba was always brash, and Shigeki was always overcompensating. What changed? Are they now suffering for the right reasons? I read through a Q&A from October of last year, and I always stuck to this specific answer to a question. Why can't they be happy? Boring. It would make a boring story. It's not the end of that quote, but it's probably the most revealing thing about this piece of work, in my opinion. Tetro does not know how drama or story functions, and in its place is a patchwork of trauma that only serves to be a spectacle to the audience. And I think we've had enough of that. Tetro Pink is a story that puts all of its eggs in a basket of serious subject matter, and it buckles under the pressure, leaving nothing but cracked yolk on the pavement. It's a story that doesn't resolve its subject matter, but rather encourages you to wallow in it, because as bad as it is, in some ways, it's an extension of you, and you can't help but stare. But you can do better than that. You can engage with something that doesn't treat your experiences as a voucher to be exchanged in place of a story. Seeing the trajectory of Blue as it is right now, with this extended torture session of a character after having their own moment, I doubt the course will change for what this series is going for. The series will continue as it is slated out to be. Trauma on demand. Oh, and then Wada dies of malnutrition, and you only know this outside the curated playlist. This video took me quite a while, so I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be taking a break from making videos for a good bit since this process was very very taxing to both my sanity and my sleep schedule. After this, I'll be touching on Danganronpa Another. You can catch me on a Twitch livestream or on Twitter, or join the Discord. They're all in the links below. I'll see you next time, and again, thank you for watching So Intense.